Welcome to the Peaceful Entrepreneur Podcast, where together we're learning how to have peace in the process of everyday business ownership by improving one step at a time how we think and what we do. I'm your host, Amy Stout. I'll be happy when. How many times have you said that to yourself or out loud? I know I have been guilty of that far too often, especially just in my head. I'll be happy when I finally make this amount per month or per year. I'll be happy when I finally get to buy a house. I'll be happy when the weather gets warmer. I mean, the smallest things. What could it be for you? I'll be happy when I get pregnant. I'll be happy when I weigh this much. I mean, I know I'm kind of getting heavy right away, but I just want to paint the picture that this thought is rampant and it is something that is getting in the way of our peace. So before I jump in today, I just want to say I might get a little passionate here. I have a lot to say about this, and I think that it is a big deal. And I hope that you will listen as if I'm just a close friend wanting the best for you, because I am. That's exactly what I want. And so we're going to just chat about that today. If you're someone who likes to watch podcasts, this episode is live on YouTube. If you want to pretend like we're sitting in a room together, I've got my cold brew. I don't know what you have to drink, but let's hang out together. Put me on your TV, put me on your phone screen. I would love to just sit and hang with you today. So I know that you've probably thought before about the fact that I'll be happy when isn't a great regular thought pattern, right? I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but I'm just saying that is not a way to live your life. That is not fun. And my big point today is that only focusing on what you don't have is the road to mental unhealthiness, to discontent, and to generally just not enjoying your life. And if you are a believer in Jesus, it is a sure road to putting distance between you and God. Like I've said before, and I will continue to say, I'm not here to shame anyone or to make anyone feel judged. And I hope that you never feel that from me. And if you do, please let me know, because I do not want you to feel that way. My goal here is to point out the hard things that are getting in the way of our peace. And that's why I'm just going to hit it head on, and we're going to talk about it. Because like I said before, we all do this. We all have this thought pattern. You are not alone if this is something that runs through your head. It's so easy to just look forward to the next thing or to focus on the good that we had in the past that we don't have anymore, right? I'm sure you fall in one of the two camps, that you're more prone to look forward or more prone to look back. I happen to be someone who's more prone to look forward because I can envision and dream so clearly, and I can see it, and I can see how to get it, and I want it. And so that is so easy for me to focus on, and more than focus, fixate and get to the point where you're you're always thinking about the grass being greener, right? But here's the thing. The grass will never be greener if you are currently constantly fostering an attitude of negativity. Because here's what will happen. If you are repeatedly thinking, I wish I had that, then you are training your brain to have that thought. The more you think it, the more deeply ingrained it gets, the more regularly and automatically it will happen. I mean, think about building a habit. When you first start out, let's talk about drinking coffee. When you're a teenager, you're like, ugh, coffee, gross. And then you taste a Frappuccino and you're like, that's kind of good. And then you gradually work your way toward liking just a regular cup of coffee, right? What happens? Every single morning, you get your coffee. And you don't think about it anymore. It just happens, right? So that is exactly what happens in your brain. You're building a habit of a negative thought pattern. And that will slowly take over. And as much as you think, once I have that thing, I'll be happy, I am here to tell you that you will not be happy. Because when you get to that thing, you're just going to want the next thing. Because that's exactly what you've trained your brain to do. right? So how do we stop that? How do we take a hold of that and shift it? We become grateful and positive right now in this moment. We reverse engineer the problem, right? Because here's the thing, you are creating habits no matter what. They're either good habits or bad habits, right? I mean, if you start eating junk food and binging Netflix every night, and then you keep doing that, that's a habit. It's just a bad one, right? So, and you might not be consciously making it a habit, but it's becoming a habit. So how can we take control and foster good habits in place of bad habits to serve not only our current self, but also our future self? Because I will say it again, if you are not practicing happiness now, you will not be happy later. You just won't. So what do we do with that? Amy, I'm single. How can I be happy? All I want is to be married. Amy, I'm not making any money. How am I supposed to be happy when I'm broke? I get it. I mean, those are really hard things. And you are not alone in those things. I want you to know that. And even though they feel isolating, even though it feels like it's just you, other people are experiencing the same thing. And I don't want to minimize how hard those things are. I want to recognize, yes, that is difficult. You are allowed to recognize that it is difficult, but you have a choice. After you recognize that, are you going to fixate on the negative of what you don't have? Or are you going to consciously choose to remind yourself of what you do have right now? Because that's the thing. We all have things that we want and don't have. And we all have good things that we already have. But if you are constantly focusing on what you don't have, you are actually blinding yourself to what's right in front of you. So my encouragement today is take back what you already have. Start training your mind to think on those things. And not only will you become healthier mentally, you will become closer to God, but you will also start to see those negative thoughts fading. You will, because you're replacing them. And I do want to make a quick caveat here too, that I know that there are a lot of people out there struggling with mental health, with actual diagnosed conditions. And I don't want you to think that I am just saying this is a cure-all, no matter what your condition is. If you have something, actually going on in your brain chemistry, I recognize that just this simple, mindset work may not be the full solution. I do think it can help, but I just want you to hear that I am not saying that I'm trying to solve all your problems. But for those of you who are not specifically battling with their mental health, who are experiencing these normal thoughts just like any of us have, I do think that what I have to say would make a large difference in your mindset. And because you would be shifting your mindset, then you would be truly changing your life. Because it's our thoughts that determine our words, that determine our actions, that determines our life. I'm not saying it'll be quick. It will not be the flip of a switch. It will probably take some effort on your part, but I want to encourage you today that you have a lot more power to make a change than you're believing that you do. You really have what you need already to make this change. So how do we create our dream life now? Even though there are so many things that we envision in our dream life that we may not have yet. We create this dream life now by changing our thoughts. And if we are practicing happiness and gratitude and contentment now, imagine how much more peacefully we will pursue our goals, and imagine how much more gratitude and joy and fulfillment we will get in reaching those goals because we've been practicing the gratitude and joy along the way. We will appreciate them so much more instead of just being like, I want this thing, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Got it? Okay, cool. Next thing. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And like, that's not fun. That's not fun. And there can be so much more peace and joy and happiness in the day to day. I'm just saying. So we can have a fuller and more fulfilling life. Do you want to look back in 20 years and see all of the things that you spent time pining for? Or do you want to look back and see that journey of growth and gratitude where along the way you got what you wanted, but you were happy and content and grateful throughout the entire time? So you're probably like, Amy, okay, I got it. I get what you're saying, but like, how do I find what I'm grateful for now? I don't see it. All I can see is what I don't have. And again, no shame and no fault, because you have probably been practicing this mindset for a while and it's gotten ingrained without you even knowing it. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work to reverse, but that's okay. We are all working on that. And that's what I'm here today to help you figure out. So a couple of things that you can think about that you're grateful for, and feel free to pull out a journal and write this down as you're listening, or take some time later to do that. Couple questions. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in your fridge? Do you have air conditioning in your house? Do you have someone you can reach out to when you have a hard day? Do you have a pet that brings you joy? Do you have a hobby that makes you smile? Those are all things to be grateful for in the everyday that you can truly find every single day. So that's the first step. Realize and be grateful for what you do already have. And if you do share my faith in Jesus, you can be grateful to God for giving you those things. And that will bring you closer to Him, because you are glorifying Him and recognizing what He has done in your life. And all He wants is for you to draw close to Him. And so just practicing gratitude and giving that back to Him and thanking Him will make a huge difference in your relationship with Him as well. Imagine how much closer you would feel to God if you were regularly thanking Him and recognizing what He's done in your life, rather than only asking for what you want. Just imagine the bond that you would strengthen with Him. So I want to go ahead and get a little bit more personal, because I feel like that will help just solidify this concept, and it may help you think through your own desires and gratitudes in this moment. Because here's the thing, I have a lot of things that I want, and I want to say the problem is not wanting things. It's not. We are designed to desire more. God designed us to be that way. So those are good. God gave them to you for a reason. But the problem, like I've already said, is when going after those desires takes precedence over prioritizing your current relationship with God, which also means they would be taking precedence over your current happiness and mental health and get in the way of those things. So what do I want? Well, let me tell you, I want a bigger home so I can host people and so I can have a true in-home office. I want a home that I have the capability to keep clean and free of dust and mold. I cannot control that in my current home because it's old and I'm renting it, and I truly struggle with breathing on a daily basis, and I'm so excited to be able to have more control over that. I want my businesses to grow. I want to start more businesses. I currently have 2 businesses, this and Abide, and I have 2 more ideas for other businesses, and who knows if more will come. I want to invest in real estate. I want to start a coffee shop. I want to have a family, and that's just naming a few. That's just the big ones. And I look forward to the days when I have those things. Like, I truly am so excited for that moment. But I don't want my life to be miserable until I get there, right? I want to enjoy my time every day. And I know that if I invest in enjoying my day-to-day now, I will enjoy my day-to-day when I have those things even more. So what do I have to do every single day? I have to intentionally turn my focus. I acknowledge my goals. I do think about my goals every day. I really do. I don't know how I could not, because I'm so excited for them and I'm so future oriented. And I take steps toward them on a daily basis. I do. I've created a plan and I'm following that plan. But in the day to day, as I'm working toward what I don't have, I am still focusing on what I do have. I have built habits into my day that automatically create space for doing this. So like I mentioned, in my morning routine, I am practicing gratitude for the body that God has given me by working out and by taking care of myself and getting ready and by eating a nutritious meal. I am practicing gratitude for the home that He has currently given me, even with all its quirks and things that I don't like about it. I am practicing gratitude for it by keeping it clean and making it a peaceful space to exist in every day. And I'm practicing gratitude for the communion that I can have with God right in this moment. That is the same amount of communion with God that I can have for the whole rest of my life until I go to heaven. And that's going to be a different level of communion with God. And that's what we ultimately have to look forward to. But right now in this moment, I have full access to talk to God on a daily basis and to hear from Him on a daily basis from reading the Bible. I also have regular times where I'm gathering with other people at church and with my community group. And in those times, it is naturally built in, like I said, to express and to process and to focus on what God is doing right now. So that is built into my daily and weekly rhythms. So in those times, I focus on the home I have that keeps me safe, keeps me warm, provides a place of peace and rest. I focus on the amazing friends and community that I have around me. I focus on the goodness of God in my life. I focus on the little joys like that first sip of coffee or a new leaf coming out on a plant. And I focus on the ability to feed my body in a way that is both nutritious and delicious. Like, God did not have to make food taste good. He didn't, but He did. And that is so beautiful and such a blessing. Like, there are so many little things that you probably just don't think about. But if you started to, you would see them pop up more and more. So our lives are so rich, but do we see it? So that's my ultimate question for you today. Do you see the good? Do you see the things to be grateful for? Are you practicing listing them out? If you want to practice that with me, I would love to hear from you. I send an email every single Wednesday as soon as I drop my podcast, so you can always hit reply. And if you didn't get that email, sign up in the description below. But you can always hit reply and continue the conversation. I want to create a community here. I don't want this just to be a one-way street, so I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you're grateful for. I want to hear what you're struggling with, and I want to help you to practice that gratitude in your daily life. Before I hop off, there are two extremely helpful resources that have helped me a lot on my journey with practicing this. It's two books about your thought patterns. And I will say that they are coming from a Christian perspective, and they are written by two incredible people in the Christian space. One is a pastor, Craig Groeschel. He wrote Winning the War in Your Mind. And then Jenny Allen is an incredible author and speaker, and she wrote Get Out of Your Head. These two books, especially read like back to back, I read them back to back, were so incredibly helpful because they called out what happens in our minds. They talked about even the science behind it and the spiritual part behind it. And then they practically shared ways to shift those thoughts. And they took very specific examples and showed ways to rewrite the thoughts and establish those healthy thought patterns. And so listening or reading, whatever you prefer, both of those books would be my biggest recommendation if you want a next step after this podcast. So I will have those both linked in the description as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you sitting down and having this convo with me. I know it might not have been easy, but it's a needed one. And if you want to continue it, my DMs and email inbox are open. So I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And we would love it if you would leave a review wherever you're listening. We'll see you next week for more tips for how to become a peaceful entrepreneur.